Welcome to episode 2 of How to Do Character Voices with the Beginner Player. This is a series just for your average, run-of-the-mill, regular old person with no voice acting experience. Last episode, we went over 4 basic elements of voice acting: speed, pitch, breathiness, and loudness. These 4 basic elements, in case you haven't watched the last video, definitely check that out because this video will build on those principles. Here's a quick rundown on what we talked about last time. There are 4 elements to a basic voice. There is the speed at which the character talks. Perhaps some characters are much faster and some are much slower. There was the pitch. Some characters might be lower and some might be higher. There was the breathiness. Some characters might be constricted, and some characters might be more breathy. There was the loudness. Some characters might be loud, while others are much more soft. These 4 basic elements go to create personality. So as we get ready to dive into the next episode, last session we did the basics for humans, which is simple because you're human. Today we're going to do elves. Now, elves in D&D are a lot of fun, and really you can do any voice for them, but I as a DM often pull out something from the softer side, the slower side, more elegant words as they meander and really think about what they like and what they're doing. Elves are not really considered to be buff, big fighters. They're actually more on the opposite end of that. Most people, if you ask them what an elf is in any fantasy setting, they'll probably tell you something akin to sort of an elegant, graceful person who lives in the trees. So when you think of an elf, if you want to really convey that in a stereotype, and I again, of course, preface that you can really do any voice with the characteristics that we went over last time. This is just my personal take on how I do elves as a DM. For an elf, you might try something on the more breathy side, so you don't have to really do too much with your pitch and then add a little bit of heightness to it. And it's a little bit higher, a little bit up there in the pitch at times, and it sings a little bit. And then add a little bit of softness to it and really slow down your words. So we're going to slow down our words, breathy, kind of high pitch, singing up and down just a little bit. And all together it sounds a bit like this. I am an elven shopkeeper, and I sell magical items. To players such as yourself, I have only the best deals. I am known in all of Faerun for my wild and magical trinkets. The important thing about a character is expressing personality. We covered those 4 basic elements last time. Today I'm going to introduce one more element, and that is singing. A good thing to have in your tool belt to express personality in a character is the knowledge that you can sort of sing in the middle of your talking. And what that sounds like is a bit like this. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and in so doing I change the personality. Compare that to without. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and in so doing, I change the personality. Singing can be utilized for really strong effect to create a memorable character. Rather than playing something that's on one track, I can go from a high pitch to a low pitch and then back a little bit. I'm very extravagant in how I talk. And of course, you can change up how fast that is or how slow that is. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and that changes how I talk. Or slowed down, I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and that changes how I talk. You have the bass pitch of the character as well. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and that changes how I talk. And then you have the breathiness of it. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and that changes how I talk. Or you can aim, instead of making it more constricted, you could make it the opposite. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and that changes how I talk. And then the loudness of it. I go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and that changes how I talk. So if you're doing an elf character, a good starting point is perhaps add a singing effect to your voice and maybe do something a little bit in the higher range. So I'm going from a high pitch to a low pitch and everywhere in between. And I usually like to do elves as kind of slow, where they really take time to enunciate their words because they love to hear themselves talk and overwhelm the conversation. Or maybe your elf is a bit more shy and won't say quite as much and really bides his time. In your car or wherever you are, go ahead and take a moment to practice this character that you have and think about what your character's personality might sound like. Are they fast or are they slow? Is their pitch a little bit on the higher side or maybe a little bit on the lower side? Or maybe just in between? Is your character breathy or is he constricted? Is your character loud or is he soft? And then, does your character sing in the middle of the sentence? Does he go from a high pitch to a low pitch and then back? So think about these 5 things and go ahead and make a character for yourself and practice it and see what you come up with. And don't forget that whatever you make, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be all right, and I guarantee it is enough, and that's what's important. So good luck and happy voice acting.